Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Mending Threads. This is your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. We're a transformational series, mind, body, and spirit. And we're going to talk about topics not only today, but throughout this particular quarter that looks at changing, growing, and transforming your lives. So today we have with us um, our own Dr. Floyd Atkins, that all of you may know or may not know. But I do want to say that he's with the Center for Wellness and Healing here in Houston, Texas, and I want to say internationally known. And he's an author, public speaker, but most of all, he's a healing physician. And we have with us today Dr. Floyd Atkins, who's going to help talk about repurposing our lives. We've been through a lot. We're looking at the statistics of people not only with COVID, but we're looking at heart disease. We're looking at increased numbers, particularly in low income and communities of color. And we want to talk about for everyone, but we want to keep in mind what we can do with our resources and follow whatever he's speaking about. So I want to say welcome. Good morning, Dr. Atkins. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Just great, just great, just great. And it's so good to have you with us this morning. But we have a topic here that we have discussed off and on in different ways. And I want to see what slant we're going to have this morning that will give us what they call a new lease on life and rebirth the situation.
Yes.
So let's see what we have here. So, how did you come up with this topic this morning?
Well, I guess to kind of introduce the topic a little bit, we talked to, or I talked to so many people about what's going on with the pandemic, and people are concerned about the virus, and then they're concerned about the vaccine, and what are you going to do about the vaccine? Are you going to take it? Or you're not going to take it? But people are not really thinking beyond that point because what's going on now is really a reset for everybody's life. People are resetting their life
Mm-hmm.
on what they're doing, how they relate to people socially when it comes to religion or
Mm-hmm.
church, and that
Mm-hmm.
they're resetting their life when it comes to their family, loved ones, whether it's younger generation, the older generation. They're resetting their life, how you relate to each other, how you relate to friends, how you travel, how you do everything is getting reset. And what I noticed, that I guess I'm telling my age now, I've been around long enough where I see this reset is going on more than once. When you think back about historically, my grandparents well, parents and grandparents in World War II was an event that happened in a generation that reset everybody's life. It changed things.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in the 60s and 70s, when the love generation and the civil rights movement of 65, 66, that reset everybody's life. When things changed, it was a different relationship. Even coming fast forward to younger kids now, 9/11, when that event happened in New York, it changed things. It changed the homeland security and network and how we feel about people. And that was the beginning of people starting to look at people differently. You judge people by their ethnicity. If you were Middle Eastern, then you were a problem, or it just kind of reset everybody's life, how they view things. And so
Mm-hmm.
every
And
generation,
even made how comfortable they are with themselves in new environments and new situations.
exactly.
Like how trusting. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so now we're at the point where we're with this pandemic, and again, it's resetting people's lives. Again, how do you adjust to the new normal? I call it, because people want to get back to the old normal, but again, the old normal never comes back. We never go back to pre World War II or pre civil rights,
Mm-hmm.
or pre 9/11. You don't go back. So how do you repurpose what you're doing now? So don't just think about whether I'm going to take the vaccine or not, or what I'm going to do this position. You have to be adaptive. You have to change. So that's what this is all about today. We're going to talk about how to repurpose and things you need to do. Just the basics. It's nothing. It's complicated, but things we need to focus on, and it will help us get more clarity about where we're going.
Mm-hmm. And I think we need to begin when you speak of that. Would it have a lot to do with the values that you already have or that you're interfacing? Would
Yeah,
it have? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. It does agree with the values, and also that people have to, if they don't have any concrete or clear values, it's time to set those values and parameters and boundaries about what they're going to do or how they're going to live their life, or what's important and what's not important, which I think is the most important. Just determine what is important to you. Is it important to have a 9 to 5 job where you work hard every day and you don't have, you don't go on vacation for 20 years? Is it important to smell the roses while you go along in this life because you
Yes.
don't know
Yes.
where you're coming from? I mean, recently it's been very disturbing to me, the number of things like shootings that go on because people are just disconnected from their life, and they see things through, I call it through a peephole. They don't see a small portion of life, but they think this is the answer.
And
And
maybe feeling trapped when they see the people, the options are
yes,
very limited, and they don't really see all of the options they have in the moment, that they're feeling frustrated because they haven't set up a repertoire.
yeah. And
Hmm.
so you want to, so with hopefully what we can share with people today is how they can start now before they really get their feel that trap feeling before they get back into a wall, and set some guidelines up and realize, something I need to do proactively about that. I
One
know
of
you.
the things that you mentioned just then,
Hmm.
the two things that you mentioned, I want to respond to and ask the question.
Yes,
So, when, say, for instance, people make a decision, you see people going through life, whatever, da 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 da. You're making a decision on who you want to be, how
yes,
you want to describe yourself. And
yes,
so almost it is starting back at a beginning to reflect, to see what do I enjoy, but who am I?
yes, yes. That's exactly it. Because, and then when you answer those questions, those are the key questions that help you set your path or repurpose where you are. Because even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you were obviously a different person. You grow, you mature, and you can't still live your life like you're in your 20s or your 30s or have those same goals and ideas.
Hmm.
You have to look at the situation today and look at your circumstance today, and determine who am I now and what is my purpose now. What do I need to be doing, or what direction I need to go.
Hmm.
So
And
that's
I think your energy level changes. So it's like equipping. I was trying to think of like your car. So you
yeah,
have a car and you've had it a long time. So now
yes,
we not we, and then but the car is very dependable and it runs. So one of the things, in order for it to continue to operate the way you want it to operate, you really have to think of the car a different way, because you have to think of a car, whether you want to have a lifetime car
yes,
or whether you want to have a cute little jet about car for right now, and you're
right,
going to change the car. So
yes.
yeah. So as you speak it, I'm thinking, okay, all these decisions is earlier on. What do you want later on?
Yes, and that's it. Like, you have that car, and when you first get that car, you would drive it fast and enjoy it and kind of speed around and love it. But when that car gets 10 years old, you drive it real gently. You change your, how you take care of it. You treat it like a friend. So you want to treat your body and your life that way too. You don't, you can't, and then that's a sign of, from in a natural standpoint, it's a sign of, I guess, maturity, wisdom, knowledge in a person's life when they change how they act. Because in the 20s and 30s, you run around a little bit reckless because you feel like you have a whole lifetime to live, and you do. But as you mature, you realize what's important in life and what values you have and what you really want to accomplish and how you want to leave your legacy in the time you have here.
So
So,
I wanted to ask you a question
mhm,
though.
yes,
You just mentioned, okay, we were looking at people with the violence, and all of a sudden they out of character, maybe, so to speak, using that terminology.
yes,
People are saying that I didn't think that they would ever do that or whatever. Are there Do doctors or physicians find chemical changes or any changes that are going on um, in the body at that same? Now I know, in the mind and what's really going on and how trauma, but I mean physiologically or medically, do you have information or know of whether something is going on in that moment, whether there are already some medical problems that may be related to some of these things, environmental impact of something on the body, you know.
Um, and to a small degree, well, I say to a small degree, it could be to a larger degree, it would be different with people because I think a lot of people who, we use the term when people change dramatically in their personality, they get radicalized, whether it's something violent or whether it's something thinking or whether you wear a red hat or from a blue state or whatever. People don't realize that all these situations people are getting radicalized. That means it's changing your thinking. And that's one reason I think what you do in psychology is so important, because I think the most important thing is not medication, it's not drugs, it's talk therapy, it's talking people through a situation and getting them to rethink it and be clear about it. Because once they start going down a rabbit hole of a certain type of thinking, a certain type of pattern, then it leads to these conclusions that they draw. And these are
Mhm,
errant
mhm.
conclusions, these are aberrant conclusions that they lead to, and they end up making those choices. Now, when it comes to medically, there are certain foods, there are certain I guess, lifestyle changes you go through that can be triggers. There may be certain chemicals in the environment that can be triggers that cause people to make different choices. I think just the long term effects of stress is one big one because it affects so many ways, but psychologically it can affect you really, because it goes into depression, it goes into all of those diagnoses we put on people who have long term stress. But to be specific about physiological change in your brain or in your thinking, that really hasn't been pinpointed yet. I would speculate that, but it's no way to pinpoint that.
I was really interested in, I'm interviewing people now, and I mean, it's not any conclusive or whatever. I'm just finding some mirror associations. And that was my motivation for asking the question. I'm beginning to find that people who find themselves frequently angry
Yes,
tend to move toward fatty foods and spices. Okay, so they have to have the um, fire Cheetos, the there's something about the hot Cheetos, the whatever seems to be an association with this emotion, with
yes,
this expression of this feeling or emotion, and I can't put my finger on it, but I have written it in my notes that it just constantly come up with children who are having problems in school. They're angry, they're fighting. Um, it's more like an excitation,
yes.
but they're being driven toward the association with spicy foods, hot sauce. They have to have that.
Yes. Well, one thing when you do say the Cheetos, those starchy and sugary foods and even spicy foods also are, again, they're starches. So starches, once you put a starch into your mouth, your enzymes in your mouth called amylase converts that to sugar. So when you're high strung or high motivated that way, the sugar is what you need. Your body is craving that. So you crave salty and a lot of the spicy foods, what they're looking for is not just the heat in it, it's the salt in it. Because if you think about hot
Mm-hmm.
sauce, you think those are we for people who are on blood pressure, we recommend not to do those things because they have a high salt content. Things with a lot of tomatoes because those are foods that tend to be bland, so add a lot of salt or a lot of sugar or both to those. So that's one craving that a person has when they're are overexcited. Now with the Cheetos, I'm also concerned about the red dye 40 because we know that dyes that they put in artificial colors and artificial flavors are what we call excitatory proteins. They tend to excite. That's why with kids with ADD and ADHD, the first thing you take away is the artificial colors and artificial flavors. Again, I always talk about those things are banned in countries like Japan and also in the Scandinavian countries. They don't give those to kids because they know kids can't focus. And when you can't focus and you get irritated or agitated, you tend to act out in many, many ways.
So I think that, in addition to possibly what you mentioned before, things that are occurring in the environment that are subtle,
Yes,
that are said in connection with the food. Things that are it's teaching okay, let me say it like this. For example, commercials like "Don't let them see you sweat,"
Yes.
or "Did you
Just
get
do
there
it.
first?"
Yeah.
Uh,
Or just do it.
just do. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of different things. There's a car commercial, a race commercial that's on, that no matter what, you were first. You won no matter what. And so,
Yeah.
you're looking at road rage, you're looking at a lot of things going on,
Yeah.
but we're being asked to do that.
Yes. And
You
I
see.
again, when it comes to us from a spiritual standpoint, it always emphasizes self. So self focuses on you taking care of you, or you putting yourself above other people rather than focus on other people. When you focus on other people, you operate with more gratitude and humility rather than operating with um, selfishness. That's the way I can put it. Because
Hmm.
and the commercials do that. The ones you mentioned is exactly what they do. So if you say just do it, you do what you want to do and forget about how it affects anybody around you. And
Hmm.
if you're always first, then that means everybody else is always second. You deserve to,
Hmm.
step on everybody else on the way to wherever you're going to the top. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a definitely a big psychological impact, and people have to change their thinking when it comes to that.
So we had a guest on last week, and he was talking about, well, in one of the programs we had, and he was talking about that we forgot just what you're saying,
Mm,
that when you're reared, you're shaping a worldview in
yeah,
addition to what you were taught in your home. Around you, the television, that's why some countries won't allow you to look at certain shows. The television that's around, what people say, what you see, you're shaping a way that you view the world, and how you prioritize things that are important. And
yeah,
so when you see things in the workplace, in the schools where people are shooting,
yes,
when they walk in, they'll go like, well, we never had this before, but they're not paying attention to reprioritizing how you handle a person who looks different,
yes,
or how your parent respond. What you're doing is saying, get rid of this situation,
right,
respond to this situation forcefully. So they're not seeing the minute nuances that are dictating
yes,
exactly what over here to be.
yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, you wonder how do they view people as being a threat that's not a threat, or your solution is to go get a gun and go to Walmart. I'm still trying to it's still amazing because it happens so much. I talk to other people about it, but one pattern we see here with these always take place. They always happen in multiple episodes. When one person does it, I think this is maybe the fifth or sixth shooting. It uh, and what I notice now is the news media doesn't mention the name. It doesn't talk about the shooter, the person who committed the event, because they don't want to give them, they want to lift them up or give them some
Yes,
accolades. Yeah,
yes,
I'll
yes,
put that on
yes.
them. But what I found out now, that kind of has changed because people who do it now are not doing it for they don't really care. They have this in them, and they need a trigger. And so when someone else do it, they figure it's my turn, or they're motivated to do it, not because they want to necessarily be in the news media, but it's because that psychological thing has been going on
Right.
and something's been holding them back. But now they feel like, well, he did it, so I need to do it too. And then the next person. So it's a lot of pent up um, frustration, anxiety, and like you said, anger here that
Hmm.
I'm gonna let you determine how we figure out how we address that.
Well, one of the things that I've been working on is, when you're speaking like repurposing, is
Yes.
having the person to say what it is that they think would be the worst thing that could happen.
Hmm.
And then what is it that you have inside of you that would help you modulate the worst thing that would happen?
Hmm.
What would you do? What do you think you can do? And when you help the person make that powerful thing bigger,
Yes.
you see, then all of a sudden the other part, the fear or the anxiety, whatever, it starts dropping out. But what we
Uh,
do is, even with myself, what I've found out is I do better when I look at what I need to do,
yeah.
what works for me. But if
Yes.
I look at what someone else is saying is important or whatever, then my fear or my anxiety about it would not drop out. For
Right.
example, we were talking about my fear of heights.
Yes.
Okay, so I could either I could keep my fear of heights and not deal with it,
Hmm.
but I would have to have a motivation to move toward that within myself.
Yes.
So I already know that one of the things that I have is how could I become more of me or what my God I believe would be
Yes.
if I did not test out with my belief and go forth with trying certain things in a stepwise fashion. So they were laughing at me as old as I am that I'm getting ready to do hot air ballooning.
Ah, yes.
Right.
Well,
But so I said that's a calculated way to move toward it other than thinking about it. So
yes.
we're going to first do the step with it being tied to something. And you go up so far and it's tied to something.
Yes.
And then the next step we know you'll be accompanied with somebody so you don't think you're by yourself. And then you'll just go on up. See?
Yes.
And so that's my plan to do that. But it's also a way to be more within your faith
Yes.
or within your belief and
Yes.
strengthening the part that is weaker in you as
Yes.
opposed to moving toward, the fear. Hmm.
Yes. And that the last thing you said is the key thing with everybody is the fear. It's a
Yes,
fear that paralyzes people or keep people in a certain position. That's why I said any decisions, and I always emphasize people when you make the decisions out of knowledge and not fear. Don't do it just because you're afraid of what might happen or what might not happen. Because
right.
if you do that, you'll always find yourself in a wrong place or bad place or not the correct place. You want to make a decision that's going to be life giving to you rather than be chaotic to you. So, well, and some of these things I talk about in this video presentation, so we're going to start it. We can talk more about it because
Okay.
I have some slides in
Hmm.
there I think would be of great interest to the audience and also to you. Let me see. Um, when, switch to this be. Hold on one second. I think I shrunk my PowerPoint. Okay. Okay. Can you see anything on the screen now?
No. Mm-mm. Oh, yes, yes, I can now.
Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Great. Okay. This is, and you can stop me along the way. I'm gonna listen to one slide at a time. I only have about 5 slides I want to share, but it's something that I think that people need to use as a barometer for resetting your life or repurposing your life. It's called 5 Steps to Repurpose Your Life. Um, And number one, and we talked about this at the very beginning of the show. The first thing we want to do, at this point, and this is something you can do every 5 years and every 10 years in your life, or even sooner. But I always look at years into 5 to 7 year patterns that things change, or sometime in a 10 year, by decades, things change. But 5 to 7 years is a good time to ask yourself this question: what is my purpose? What is your purpose in life? And then if you haven't identified it, you want to identify your purpose. What am I doing with my environment, with my surroundings? How do I interact with other people? And then number two, once you identify, you ask yourself, am I fulfilling my purpose? Am I doing it? Because a lot of people can know what their purpose is, but they either run from it or they choose to do other things because of, again, fear of that they may fail if they really stepped out and do what their heart and spirit led them to do. So here are
Hmm.
the 5 steps that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about them one at a time. But number one
Hmm.
is to address your stress. And the reason I start off with that because when you think about repurposing your life, you're not starting from a baby or childhood. You're starting usually from an adult situation, and we have so many stresses at that point. By the time we have get 18 or 21, you finish college or you finish your training and your secondary education, you deal with life head on. So there's a certain amount of stress that we need to recognize and adjust for. And then number two is to guard your body. And this is where, when it comes to health and wellness, I talk about all the time, how do we guard your body? It's more than diet and nutrition. It's how you live. It's mind, body, spirit. Also, to live by intentions. Once you have decided where you're going or where you need to go, you have to do everything intentionally. You make decisions not based on a whim, but you're making decisions based on, I intended to do this, and not be led into somebody else's dream, somebody else's pattern, what my parents wanted me to do, what my friends thought I should do, what my boss said. You wanna decide what you do, and then be intent on doing that. And then the fourth thing, which you mentioned, we're going to talk more about, is that we have to help someone else. You want to do for others, because that's the most fulfilling way to exercise whatever your purpose is when you help someone else. You can, your purpose becomes very clear of what you need to do. And then finally, to be grateful, because being grateful kind of takes, I think it takes a person off the hook. Do you realize that everything you have was provided for you, and that it's a blessing, and that you should give thanks for those things? And then it just opens up so many avenues and doorways when it comes to physical, spiritual, and emotional health.
And I
So
think sometimes people don't really know. Sometimes people have habits,
yes,
and their habits are based upon a demand, and they haven't gauged the demand, the level of demand that brings on the stress. So they're engaging in a routine habit, which is highly stressful all the time.
yes,
And so sometimes it's important to have the person or ourselves stop and begin to just gauge as to how do you know.
yes. Yes, and those I think those kind of habits you do that you have that way, and you kind of manage them, but those lead to things like what we're talking about here, the chronic stress. And I always identify the difference between stressors. Some stressors are acute stressors. The ones that are negative are usually chronic stressors. Acute stressors are things that motivate you to do things in life. When something acutely happens, like either you fail a test or you get a promotion, lose a job, they usually motivate you to do something else. Chronic stress is when you live with something for a very long time, a stressor that's being in a job that you don't want to be in for years. That's being in a relationship that may not be healthy for you. And those are chronic stressors. And those are what we call a major immunosuppressive, and they are primary cause of disease. We find that the primary cause of disease, no matter what name you put on it, what diagnosis you have, goes back to chronic stress. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
grief, distress, fear, worry, anger are the most powerful immunosuppressive actions. And they lead to things like cancer, hypertension, arthritis, stroke, chronic infections, skin diseases, ulcers. And I say these things, and people look at me strange. Well, how can you say that happens? But you know, if people believe in mind, body, and spirit, that we're all connected in that way, that these things are all connected, and our body acts as a physical manifestation of what's going in our mind and our spirit. So the spirit is intangible. The mind is what your emotions, your will, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to have a physical manifestation. And so when things are going wrong in the other two areas in your mind and body, they manifest in a certain way, like hypertension, that's chronic stress. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Arthritis and stroke, that's a stressor that leads to pain with your bones and joints. Stroke leads with dysfunction of your heart. Chronic infections and skin diseases, that's a manifestation of toxicity, that our body is not detoxifying correctly, or our immune system is weak. And those
Mm-hmm.
go back to these stressors again. So you have to have the connection between diet and disease. And people have to realize there's a definite connection with diet and disease, because you cannot ever be any more than what you pick up with your hand and what you put into your mouth. So the foods you eat, the lifestyle you live will dictate your overall health in the long run.
So you said one thing that sometimes people don't pay attention to. I know when I'm doing a screening, I ask
Hmm.
questions like, and they go like, "This is how does that relate to my mental health?" I go like, "Do you have any hair breakage? Is
Yeah,
your vision changed? Do you have any skin eruptions? These kinds of things. Do you find that you itch a lot? Those and so actually we as human beings don't realize that all of those are signals
yes,
telling us that we need to pay attention to something. Hmm.
exactly. And that's a key factor too. And it's it was just kind of disheartening to me in traditional medicine. Those things are not emphasized. And the way you just said it is that every physical symptom that we have, every diagnosis we go to the doctor and get, it's only a symptom of the real problem. It's a symptom of the underlying problem. It's a manifestation of the underlying problem. So, and so in traditional medicine, we treat the symptom. We treat whatever, if you have a headache, we're going to give you a headache pill. If you have backache, we're going to give you pain pills. If you have high cholesterol, we give you something to lower your cholesterol, but we never address what's causing the problem. And that way, the problem, we never really get to the solution.
To the
So we
solution.
want to think
Hmm.
that way. When I talk about guarding your body, which was the second point, is you are what you eat. So again, fasting is a way of giving your body a break. It's giving your digestive system a break. It's giving your body time to cleanse itself. The normal fasting we do is that when we are up 24 hours a day, for 16 hours we work or we have social time. For 8 hours, we should be resting or sleeping. So that sleeping time is a fasting time. That's a natural fast. That's why when we wake up in the
Hmm.
morning, we call it breakfast. We break the fast because we eat in the morning. But during those night periods, you have to have a time for your body to rejuvenate, replenish, restore itself. And then
Hmm.
diet is so important. Eating foods that are going to be healthy for you rather than foods that are going to be harmful for you. And those are eating foods that are more plant-based because plants are where our vitamins and our minerals, our antioxidants, our phytochemicals, it's alkalizing for the body, as opposed to eating a lot of animal products or eating a lot of starches and sugars. Sugars are inflammatory. Animal products has plenty of protein in it, but it really doesn't have the nutrient value like the vitamins and the minerals and things your body really needs to function. So you have to, make choices about how you choose what you eat. And then when it comes to what you put on your skin, I always emphasize that 40% of what you put on your skin will soak directly into your bloodstream and go right to your cells of your body. They go to your brain, they go to all parts of your body. And that can affect you over time if you're using chemicals that suppress thyroid function or using chemicals, additives that cause hormonal imbalances, or if you're
And I
using,
think didn't you talk at one time about lotion,
yes,
that had all of this that's so prevalently on the market that people just
yes,
rub into their skin every day.
yes. And because I tell people, just look at the lotion look at the label on your bottle of Jergens lotion and see the chemicals on there. Every chemical on there either has never been tested. They do animal tests on them. If a person doesn't break out in a rash or have a problem, it's okay. But you could have a chemical that really could trigger a chemical imbalance in you because these are chemicals that weren't meant to be put in the human body. Our body is a biological instrument. We were made for plants and biological things, not chemicals, because chemicals
So
are
what would you use instead of the what would be something that you would use in place of as you're speaking,
yes.
so that throw out a few words or something that
Okay. Okay. Well, what you use is it goes back to the saying: if you can't eat it, you shouldn't put it on your body. So
right.
when I want to use a oil or emollient to soften my skin, I'm going to use something from a plant. That's olive oil. That's jojoba oil. That's an almond oil. That could be a shea butter. But all
Uh-huh.
these things that you can eat and they're safe for your skin. People get back from the basics because we look at labels and we look at titles rather than look at the ingredients. What is it doing
Mhm.
for us? So for me personally, if I'm using something I don't see a benefit in it for my health, then I don't really need it in my life. So it has to have a health benefit. I'm just not doing it because it's popular. Let me put it that way. So yeah, using oils on your body, using and those basic things, and when I say oil, I'm saying oil as opposed to using Vaseline, which is a petroleum jelly. Petroleum jelly is a, 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 a fossil fuel, and it wasn't really meant for human consumption. Those things, if we drank petroleum jelly, it was kill us. But if we drink olive oil, it's fine. And I always go back to my spiritual community that if olive oil was good enough for Jesus when he anointed people, is good enough for me, or that was one of the key things. So you looked at what's been working throughout the generations and try to get
Mm-hmm.
back to that. And again, the same thing comes when we use household products, cleaning products, that we use so many chemicals. And what we find that uh, chemicals like ammonia or Clorox, chlorine, are all very toxic to the body, especially to your thyroid, your hormonal system in your body. But you can use things like lemon juice. You can use things like and water. When you want to use abrasive, you can use a salt. You can also use baking soda. You can use borax for cleaning, for whitening, rather than using some of the chemicals that come in soap powders or laundry detergents. I think I've shared with you before. I have non-toxic household cleaning products that people can kind of convert their house from using toxic chemicals to more healthy chemicals. And I'm going to submit that to you again. So if people are interested, you can share that with them.
Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned at one time that people, particularly now during the COVID, they were trying to find something that sterilized or whatever clean. But I
Yeah,
think you told me at one time to clean your bathroom was a good thing to use would be vinegar. Was it vinegar and baking soda or something?
absolutely. Vinegar and
Mm-hmm.
baking soda is an excellent choice. Vinegar is good for glasses and windows and a cleaner. It doesn't leave a odor. And then also the baking soda is abrasive. So it would be like using a Comet or that type that people want to scrub their bathtub or their sinks and things like that. Lemon juice and water, again, is for like a window cleaner, cleaning mirrors and glass like that, rather than having an
Mm-hmm.
ammonia product. Because, you know,
Yes.
when you use those products in your home, you should always have a mask on. You should have gloves on. It shouldn't come in contact with your skin. But we don't do that. We just don't have any barriers against those chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
live by intention. And what I want to say about this, because we want to get these last two slides, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more.
Okay.
Living by intention means to find your purpose. Because if you don't find your purpose, you can't focus on an intention. But once you have a purpose, then you can have intent to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Be proactive. You don't wait and let things come to you, or you don't. When you wait and you're not proactive, you allow situations to occur. You allow things to develop around you that you may not uh, at some point have control over, or you get swept away into it. Like a lot of people will be around people growing up and they don't realize that I have to make choices for my own life, and then you end up living secondary or part of somebody else's life, or been in a situation where you never were meant to be in. And I say that because as people like us mature, you can look back in retrospect and see, well, I made this choice at this point, or I did make a choice because I was just going along with my peers at the time, and that was a key turning point in my life. Like I made a different decision and went a different direction. And so, but you want to be proactive and always think of those things and be open about it. And then again, finally, don't procrastinate. Don't wait. Don't put things off to tomorrow that you can do today, because procrastination just leads to uh,
Unfulfillment.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
unfulfillment. Exactly. Thank you for that,
Mm-hmm.
Terry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then lastly is help someone else. And that means that a part of finding your purpose, or part to discovering your purpose, is doing what I call community service. And community is it's not just in the community, it's everyone around you, whether it's a friend or neighbor, whether it's a family member, whether it's somebody you don't know or somebody you do know, that you find out what another person's needs are, what another person is struggling with, and see what you can do to support them, to benefit them, or to lift them up, even if it's encouragement. That's a good step to take. So, I wanted to emphasize that. And the last thing is attitudes of gratitude. Attitude of gratitude. That means to be grateful, to be thankful, and always realize that the glass is half full. Most people look at the glass and
Yes.
it's half empty, and they always, I didn't get this, or I'm unfulfilled. I didn't. get what I should have gotten. But you know, and I know you do this a lot in your practice too, is to remind people, look at the positive things in your life. Don't look at what you do have, even if it
Mm-hmm.
may not be what anybody else has or what you thought you should have. Look at what you do have, because there's always someone who has less or doesn't have that. So you be thankful for those things, and you know, you'll get more in the long run.
And
So
it affects how you express yourself to other people,
yes,
and how you impact other people when you do that. I noticed, and even the words that you use and the expectation. Um, when you're speaking, I hear people in meetings,
yes,
and they begin to talk about what we're not doing.
yes,
And so, and you go like, well, where are we going? What's the goal? Well,
yes.
if this is the goal, then how? What are some tracks that we can make to get there? But
Yes,
and they keep talking about, well, what wasn't what the way it wasn't before, and
yes,
I said, well, you can't change that, but let's look at what you can change. You know,
right.
so
Yeah,
it has something to do with, I think, the amount of stress that we hold on to and that we need. Some people need to hold on seemingly
yes,
to that and create a venom when you were back there with the procrastination
yeah,
because of not being able to see a way to
yes,
move forward. So it's a creation of a mental being
right,
that gives them justification for holding steady in that position.
right,
And so they're constantly not achieving and constantly frustrated. They don't see that feedback loop of
right,
failure there,
right.
you see.
Right.
Hmm.
And you know, and it goes to, I do emphasize that history, knowing your past, where you came from, is important. But a lot of times people want to live that or relive the history. I want to go back, or, you know, and I see the movement, especially in America, because, you know, the majority of the population in America always talk about the good old days when the days were good, and the 70s, the 60s, and the 70s, and the 50s. But it wasn't good for everybody, correct?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It was
Right.
good old days for you, but it may not
Yes.
have been good old days for my grandparents and for my parents.
Right.
Right.
So, and people want to go back to relive those days rather than says, let's plan a future where we can even be better than that. Let's plan for the future. So we see what happened then, and that didn't have a good result for everyone. So if you're going to think of other people, you always think about what can we do to make it better. Like I said, moving forward, don't use a past as a barometer, but the future should always be something different. Like what can you do now? What do we need to go from here? And when people think that way, then they can really move away from failure.
So being perplexed right now,
Hmm.
I'm working on the challenge in our community of helping bringing people together, and I'm being led to help people lock arms. And I
Yes,
know that the healing of the community comes about whether you speak about theory, whether you speak about history, whether you speak, people who survive are those who use each other's strengths in order to achieve a goal that you were talking about, in
yes,
order to receive a purpose. But
yes,
somehow our culturation has led us to think of only what we can get. You can see it in decision making.
yes,
So the person will actually use their particular need to circumvent locking arms to benefit their own community because they cannot see it.
right,
They cannot see, they can only see what benefits me in the moment. So,
yes,
my challenge is to use what you have said and what we're talking about in order to help people see this as a purpose for their children,
yeah,
for right now, for their children. And if we do not lock arms and begin to become intentional now, we're talking between now and 8 years from now. What does that really mean? What does
yeah,
that transition into? Speaking of health, mental health, all of this. And so it's a contradiction as I speak with young people.
yes,
It's a contradiction. And this is what's bringing on the anger and the frustration, feeling trapped that they can't do anything at
yes,
this time, and feeling that the persons who are in power, be it power of the White House, power of the state, power in their family. They can't get out from under the power because they already see through
Yes.
their young lives the contradiction. And
Yes.
so now you have we've created a frustration, and the frustration is acting out.
Yes.
Okay, what do? You
You're
see,
correct.
and
Yeah.
and so it is calling on us. So what you were talking about this morning is that's my thing, how to get people to hear, how to get ourselves to hear ourselves.
Yes.
So, so I write on the mirror every morning with my little wax pencil.
Uh-huh.
You need to hear these 10 pounds. You
Uh-huh.
need to hear your mobility. You need to hear, all of the things that you want to strengthen.
Yes.
You must make them concrete in some kind of way in
Yes.
order to make that action occur.
Yes. And keep them front and center. You put it in your mirror so you keep it front and center in your
Front and
life.
center.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
that
Hmm.
that's so important, and what you're saying is what you should do in every aspect of your life, especially when it comes to diet and health, because you know, people, when people don't feel anything or they don't see anything, they tend to think everything's okay. But when it's front and center, that's why when people come to us and we do blood work on them, and they actually see their numbers, then it gets real. And I give them a copy and I say,
That's right.
put this on your refrigerator. See what your hemoglobin A1C is. You're in the diabetic range, or that your blood pressure is uncontrolled. And they go, say, well, I feel all right. I said, no, but look at the numbers. Keep it front and center. And then when you do that, you can focus on addressing that issue. And
And
so,
then, and then I think you do a good job. I haven't talked to you in a long time, but seeing you work with your patients in a little while. But I remembered one time there was a person that came to you,
mm-hmm,
and what you taught her to do was, although you gave her the numbers, you taught her to sense her numbers biologically as her numbers were changing.
yes, yes,
Okay, and so I think at that time you were doing a flush, you were doing then changing the diet and whatever. And I remember the lady told me, said, now I'm just beginning to feel, I can actually feel my changing of my blood pressure of my body. I can sense and feel those things. And so
yes,
sometimes I think re-engaging the contact with the body
yes,
would be impressive to get that information from people as they're going through
yeah.
the change or the transformation. You see,
And
while they're working on repurposing.
yeah, and that's exactly right. Again, people don't realize that everything is connected. It's a vicious cycle. So when you are eating the bad foods, you're eating the wrong things, it causes the thinking to be off, and you make poor decisions. But then when you start changing the way you eat or changing the way you think, you make better choices. So people get in a cycle of spiraling up of I'm feeling better, so I want to eat better, and I want to keep this going. But if they get in the opposite, then they eat poorly, they feel bad, they eat sugars and starches, so they always have fluctuation of sugars. And when you go down hypoglycemic, that's just a gateway, that's a trigger for depression or for acute depression. And then if you do that on a regular basis, you go into a chronic depression. And next thing you know, everything is bad, and I can't get out of my room, and I don't want to go outside, and I close my curtains, and everything is bad. But once you get out, if you're eating those plant-based diets, you're getting the nutrients and the minerals you need. You're getting the stimulation from sunlight, which is vitamin D, and your body is doing what it's supposed to do. Then all of a sudden, life is wonderful, and you can dance through the daisies and run through the fields and tell everybody how lovely they are. Spread love. Yeah. And so
So,
I encourage people to realize that there is a connection, and we have total control over it. It's up to us to do that. So and again, during this time of repurposing, a lot of people are really realizing, by being able to work from home, by being able not to go into the office, that it's a better quality of life and doing things a little differently. In some companies, the employees will realize a better quality of life for them and their company when people are not having that social interaction. There's some jobs you may have to have that, but it provides you a time to reset. I've seen so much difference in people who are staying at home now and not going to restaurants, that they're starting preparing food at home. They're learning how to cook. They're learning new recipes. They're eating healthier because they just are eating whatever comes along the pathway of life. I kept saying, when you just go in the city and you're eating outside your house, I tell them you're eating roadkill. Whatever they killed on the road and put in the restaurant, whether it's chicken or fish or shrimp or whatever, you're eating roadkill because the stuff that's out there, it wasn't prepared for you, it was prepared for whoever eats it. So you want to eat food that was prepared for your body, or that you're preparing for your body and it meets your needs and that satisfies
Yeah.
you, rather than eat what somebody else has determined that you should eat.
Yes. Well,
Roadkill.
I think that starting out in the mornings, if we would repurpose our lives, we would have to then begin to think of something that we would believe in that's going to guide us that day.
Yes.
It actually starts the night before for sure.
Yes.
Get rid of all of the junk
Yes.
that you've been thinking about, and I do know that when you write it down, it gives you a head start the next morning. You
Yes.
see, so you don't even have, and at night your brain doesn't even have to worry about it because it already knows it's written down.
Right.
And that you'll be able to take care of it the next day. So I
Yes.
think that repurposing really, it is an intentional
Yes.
activity that we should engage in to
Yes.
bring on this. You know how when you were growing up, you had this excitement about what the next day will bring, and as
Yes.
you get older, you think that, oh wow, this is going to be the same thing. So
Yes.
I found, as old as I am, I I look at every day. The more I look at every day, and I look for something new and meaningful, even when I'm talking to you.
Yes.
Look at it. So every moment I'm in with someone, I found that I do not have the right to engage in this as a habit.
Right.
I have to give something of myself, and I have to accept something from someone else, and that engagement brings on the new.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if I'm just going through, even with couples, I tell couples, just pay attention. Let's see if we could create this new. Oh, I've been with this person 20 some. No, but
Right.
they're going to laugh a different way. Their eyes are going to look a little different. When you were dating, you do a little something different. Come on
Yes.
now, let's. So I try to think of that and bring on what they call the excitement of life, all during the day,
Yes.
and that. And I think that this is it begins, it's a beginning, you see.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And then people understand that again, by living by intent, you want to keep it going. People do couples therapy, and I've had therapy like that where you get motivated, you do it, and you do it for a month or do it for 2 months, but
Yeah,
you realize
yes,
that
yes,
you have to intentionally, you plan, like you say, when you tell people plan a date night or plan something that only you
yes,
two are involved in, it doesn't have to be anybody else. And I find those
yes,
to be so helpful. Either if it's with family, I think some people even get too engaged in family where they had some separation where they can come back together and be able to appreciate each other. But sometimes when you're
yes.
in a certain mode, that you end up being, how do you say it,
Existing.
codependent,
Oh,
coexisting,
codependent. Oh,
codependent. You
yes.
support their bad habits and they support your bad habit, or
Even
I
with
won't call it
family,
bad. If
even
with family,
even with the people you choose to be around,
yeah,
you know,
especially with
you
the people you choose to be around.
yeah. So you got to consciously choose.
Hmm.
I think you have to intentionally choose the people to remain in your life that follows a healthy routine, follows your purpose, your goals, and those kind of things. Because if you're around other people who are not, what
Yes,
would happen is that pull would go against what you're trying to do, and then now you got another kind of stress.
yes,
You
yes.
see. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I guess we need to talk a little bit about the word love. That
Yes.
people need to learn how to express that or understand what that means, and that means to give more or care more for others or the people around you than yourself. And And because I think that makes a big difference when people don't they realize they lose the love in their life. They don't. That's not a part of their daily routine. What I find out when you talk about doing an affirmation, and I thought doing affirmations in the morning was a good thing. But at one point in my life, I did a lot of research on dream studies and about dreaming, and I understood what the purpose of dreaming in our life is to work out things that happen. That we need to do every day. So when you have challenges, when you have fears, when you have questions, your dreams help you work those things out. And people don't realize it because most people don't remember their dreams. But there are techniques to remember your dreams. But what I found out with me personally is that when I go to bed at night and I think on those things that I want to resolve, I'll dream about it. And you wake up in the morning, you have people wake up in the morning with an idea solution that they it came from nowhere.
Yes,
And so you
yes,
worked it out all night. And so if you do an
yes.
affirmation even at night, even if just one affirmation on one particular subject, one particular idea of what you want to do better, or how you want to be a better person, or how you want to relate to somebody differently,
Hmm.
it will you will work it out yourself, and you wake up in the morning with that new thought, that new idea, and you can move forward in that. And then you can continue affirmations during the day too. And that only reinforces what you've already have in your spirit. So I think people
Hmm.
go rather than watching CNN at night, or who shot who, or rather than watching a murder mystery or a monster flick before you go to bed, watch something that's going to be uh, nutritive and going to be fulfilling, or help you fulfill your life, or help you fulfill your dreams, or help you resolve
Hmm.
whatever questions you have. And that's by just resetting how you feel, how you think about something.
I think you're right on target with that. And
Hmm.
then maybe with yourself or your family,
Hmm.
begin to, because with the new, with the repurposing what you described, actually now you'd be able to meet with your family. You'd be
Hmm.
able to talk with them, your spouse or your wife or husband. You're able to look at them in the eyes now, and not by in passing.
Yes.
So so it's a whole lot of new stuff going on that we really need to hold on to,
Hmm.
and make sure we become intentional
Yes.
about it, not taking it for granted.
Yes.
You see, and so those are some things that I think that we need to hold, that we need to look at.
And before we finish up today, I want the audience to realize that how important what we're saying today, and how important to talking to someone and getting the tools they need to be able to make those proper decisions. Because as psychologists, as yourself, it's important that you give people tools. They have to understand that even if the family member doesn't want to talk to you, or they're not in that place yet, how you deal with that, how you have to not get pulled into their fears, anxieties, frustrations, or their life experiences, and move on. But people need to understand that you can't just, it's like being a chemist. You can't just learn chemistry out of the air. You can't learn mathematics out of the air. You have to study. You have to have tools.
Hmm.
You have to have some training.
Hmm.
So having counseling, having a therapy session, and I don't want to call the word therapy. I like to use the word talk. And
Yes.
that you want to talk to a person who has
Hmm.
experience in what you want to talk about, and that way you
Yes.
can do that. So I want to encourage people. At this time specifically, we want to really focus on talking to someone who can fulfill us.
Yeah, I wanted to just say this one thing about love.
Hmm.
So, expression of love sometimes, and I'm faulty of this.
Yes.
So, sometimes you can have love in your heart. You can be intentional about doing things, or expressing things verbally, but don't really say everything out in words. So the other people may, you feeling real warm and lovey and cozy to people. And what I'm realizing lately in the last few years is I don't really say all of the things that I feel. So,
Mm.
it's like I was talking to a real good friend, and she said, "Well, I never really knew you never really say those things." She says, "But you said them today. How long have you really felt like you appreciated me?" I said, "Oh, I've always felt like that. I I've always felt, let me tell you, I'm so bad about, I will go and get gifts for people. I get into the whole idea of loving this person. I will create a beautiful gift for this person. And if this person is not around, or I'll forget to call them up and tell them how appreciated I got some because I've gotten into this thing and I just can't wait to give it to them. But if the timing doesn't come, it is, and I go like, oh wow, look what I have sitting. I forgot to give her that, or something like that. But I really, and people say, well, I kind of thought that way, but I have caring for so many people. But what I'm learning now is to take the time to say all of the words that I'm experiencing. So my point is, sometimes you can have it inside, you feel it, you think it, but if the words of appreciation and caring and love do not come from, some people think, only deeds, but the words are very important as well. You see, to recognize. So that's what I wanted to.
Well, you just poured into my spirit today because you just described me also. So today I'm saying on the audience, and I'm going to live my intentions, and I'm going to start telling people what's in my mind because I have it in my mind all the time.
Time,
But
yes,
my wife will remind me, but you never say that. You never say it. I kept saying, "Why?" You say, I believe it. I feel it. So why do I have to say it? She said, "You have to say it." And I realized
yes,
how important it is because I realized when people say it to me, it has an effect on me. So
yes.
so
I
yes,
thought when I hugged you, you knew that I loved you. But I
but you
thought
never said it.
I sent you that ice cream over there that you knew that I love you. But they go like, no, you never told me that you appreciated me.
Right.
So so I have to now. That's my intention,
Yes.
moving forward, is to
Yeah.
really do that, to call up people I haven't called up in a while, to talk to my family members and tell them, I'll call them up and I'll just be so happy to talk to them or whatever. But I'm going to tell them that I love them. I'm going to tell them what I appreciate about them,
Yes.
the
Well,
actual words.
well, I think you should send that challenge out to all the listening audience right now. They need to
Yes,
find someone or find several people, tell them you appreciate
yes,
them and to love them and the things they need to say that's in their head.
yes. Begin your repurposing by doing that and being
Yes.
intentional with yourself
Yes.
and your loved ones. Well, we're
Yes.
going to sign off, everybody. I do want to say that we had a good conversation. I truly enjoyed. Let me start right here. So, Dr. Atkins, I truly enjoyed talking with you. I enjoyed you today. I enjoyed your smile, and I
Yes.
love the way you come up with these creative ways to express things that we really need to do. You see, and I do love that, and giving good, clear examples.
Well, Dr. Lewis, I thank you so much for having me on the show. I enjoy our time together. I enjoy sharing my thoughts and listening to what you have to say because I think you are a vessel of wisdom and I appreciate you.
Thank you. So,
Okay.
audience, we're here and we're working out a system now. You'll be able to go on Facebook and you'll be able to send us information and also begin to answer questions starting on next week. And I'm going to look forward to that. So, right now, we're going to sign off and I'm going to say this: renew beliefs, rebuild faith, and reconnect families and communities. For it is not the circumstances we meet, it is the manner in which we respond that determines health, happiness, and success. So I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, God willing. Sign on to the website, wrc-houston.com. Sign up for cultural competence with Dr. Walker. Sign up with Dr. Atkins. And there will be a class coming up hopefully soon. And mental health coaching. We're looking forward to equipping our community, tooling our community to help each other. So please do that, and I'll look forward to seeing you. Thank you now.